Good morning. Good morning. Oh, my name is Douglas Griffin. This is my Sunday school class. We are in the book of Exodus. We're in the book of Exodus, chapter 32. We've been going through Genesis and Exodus, Leviticus, just going through chapter by chapter, verse by verse, because my philosophy is it's easier to understand the Word of God if you put it all in context, read it verse by verse. Then a lot of times verses that we interpreted one way when we read them out of context, when we see them in context of everything that's going on, we go, oh, that's what he's talking about. And the Bible's just less of a mystery. So we're finally in chapter 32. Moses has brought the children of Israel out of Egypt. I think I want to lower this a little bit. Well, that was more than a little bit. Okay. Moses has brought the children of Israel out of Egypt, brought them to Mount Sinai, and God is retraining them because they've had most of their training all of their training in Egypt. They've learned Egyptian gods, Egyptian customs. Again, it was their choice to stay in Egypt. Joseph was the viceroy, the second man in charge in Egypt, and it just made sense to them. Our brothers, like the vice president of Egypt, why would we leave? He's rich, he can supply us with all our needs. Well, one reason to leave is because God is also rich, and God also said he'd supply them with all their needs, but they picked Joseph over God because Joseph was tangible. I can see him, I can go right to him. You pray, God doesn't feel like he's answering you right away, but if you have a person you can go to, it's just easier. But the problem is, if God has already told you, I understand, gee, I haven't heard from God, but if God has told you, here's the plan, and you go against it, then whatever consequences happen, that's on you. So they're in Egypt for a couple hundred years, not because God needed them to be in Egypt in order to make them a mighty nation. Not. God made them a mighty nation despite the fact that they're in Egypt. God sees our mistakes that we're going to make, and he says, okay, I see that, and despite that mistake, I'm still going to bless you in this way and bless you in that way. That's because he's God. That's why we elected him God many years ago. Like, you're good at this. So God, he turns our mistakes into making it look like it was part of the plan all along. Because God just never loses. The devil doesn't defeat God. We don't defeat God. No one defeats God. God wins in the end. So despite their choice to be in Egypt, he made them a mighty nation there. And now he's finally bringing them out. But he has to re-educate them. And the re-education starts at Mount Sinai. So Moses has gone up. It's been 40 days. He's gone up into the mountain, and God has given him not only the 10 Commandments, he gave them the 10 Commandments before he left. Why did God give them the 10 Commandments before he left? Because the first commandment is like, you shall have no other God before me. Don't make any idols. I want to say these 10 Commandments right in front of you so you can hear them. Now I'm going to take Moses up because you guys don't have the patience for 40 days worth of laws. You'll go crazy. But at least you got the first 10. Just hold on to those. You see I'm in the cloud. You see I'm in the lightning and the thunder. And he goes up with Moses. Their problem was they were used to the cloud being right in front of them. So now the cloud was on the mountain. They're thinking, well, who's going to be in front of us? Not knowing that God could do both. We sometimes don't think God can do both. God can be at the church and be in our house. God can talk to the minister, talk to us. We pick. You pray. And again, there's no problem with asking people to pray or wanting to go to a special place to commune with God. The only problem is thinking that's the only place you can commune with God, or that's the only person who can help you. So it's our attitude God's more concerned about than our actions. Why are you doing the action? If you like to go to a park and talk to God, it's not because you think God lives in the park. It's because that's a nice place. Hopefully, God's in the bathroom in the morning when you're brushing your teeth. You can talk to God anytime. But if you are going to the park because that's what you believe, that God lives in the park, then God's like, I got to change that. And so there were things that people believed that God thinks, I got to change it. He starts with Moses here. So God is always economical, doing three things at once, at least. So Moses is on his way down from the mountain, and God's going to do several things at once because he's that good. So in Exodus chapter 32, verse 7, it says, and the Lord said to Moses, go, get down. And I'm just reminding you in Exodus chapter 24, verse 18, it says, so Moses went up into the midst of the cloud and went up into the mountain, and Moses was on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights. So he's been gone for 40 days. And so the people have decided he's never coming back, or he went back to Egypt, or he went on without us. Now they could have just decided what God said, which is, I'm bringing Moses up here and I'm going to give him some more laws. But people make up their own stories, and then they talk themselves into believing them. Well, here's what God's going to do. That's not what he said. So he's in the cloud. He's went into the midst of the cloud. Moses cannot see what's going on down there because there's a cloud. The glory of God's all around. So he cannot see on purpose. I need your full attention as we write these laws so you understand them and you're able to execute them. If you're looking at me, but also looking at the people and what they're doing, you will not get these laws. And these laws are what's going to save them later. So it's okay you can't see the people for a while. And God sometimes will take away our Moses for a while to see what we're going to do. That's the test. He's given us the ammunition. He's given us the ability to cope. Are we going to pass the test, or are we going to go crazy? And, oh no, our Moses is gone. So Exodus chapter 32, second part of verse 7. It says, go get down. I know you can't see them, so I got to tell you. For your people whom you brought out of the land of Egypt have corrupted themselves. They have turned aside quickly out of the way which I commanded them, because I had just told them what to do. So it's amazing how fast. 40 days is pretty fast to ignore God. In Exodus chapter 19, verse 8, when he first appeared on the mountain, when God first appeared on the mountain, it said, then all the people answered together and said, all that the Lord has spoken, we will do. So Moses brought back the words of the people to the Lord. They said they'll do it because God said, will you sanctify yourself? Will you? Yes, we're going to do all that. 40 days later, not going to do it anymore. Exodus chapter 24. That's because we don't have a sense of time. First of all, God is slow. He is slow. He could be quicker, but he has his reasons for being slow. So 40 days to us just seems like an eternity. 5 months. Oh my God, it's been 5 months. It seems like eternity to us. When the problem is finally solved, we look back and go, oh, it's only 5 months. It was only a month. It was only a year. But to us, it's like, oh my God. Right? At the time, because that's how it feels to us, because we're just human. But it also makes us think, well, God's forgotten. It's been so long. It's been so long. God's forgotten. God does not forget. In Exodus chapter 24, verse 3, it says, so Moses came and told the people all the words of the Lord and all the judgments. He came and said, okay, here's what I want, and here's what you got to do. And all the people answered with one voice and said, all the words which the Lord has said we will do. We'll consecrate ourselves. We will follow these commandments. We won't make any idols. That's what we'll do. Because he brought us out of Egypt. He parted the Red Sea. He fed us with manna. He brought water out of a rock. This is just amazing. So we're going to believe this God until we can't see him. And that's us today. I can't feel him. I can't see him, so he must be gone. So I'm just going to go crazy now. Exodus 38, verse 8. So they have made themselves, this is what God is telling. Here's why you got to go down. They had made themselves a molded calf and worshipped it and sacrificed to it and said, this is your God, O Israel, that brought you out of the land of Egypt. So they've made a calf and said, this brought us out. This is what he looks like. We can mold him and make him. They know they were brought out of Egypt. They're not crazy. They know that's what happened. But they said, this is who did it. Because they just want to make a representation. We want to make representations. Okay, I'll kiss this cross. There's nothing wrong with having a cross, but unless you think that that has power. The cross doesn't have power. I'll kiss this cross and I'll pray to this cross. And you think because I clutched the cross that it has some magic power. Like, no, God, that's just a symbol. You can have it if you want, but don't think that that has power. They now thought this calf is the physical representation of God. and let's pray to it and sacrifice to it. This is why God said, don't make any images, because you're going to start thinking they have power. You're going to go up to the statue of Mary and pray to the statue. So God's like, don't do any of that. Verse 32, verse 9. Chapter 32, verse 9. And the Lord said to Moses, I have seen this people, and indeed, it's a stiff-necked people. Now that if you push somebody and they resist, they stiffen their neck, like, no, I'm not going to do what you want me to do. That's what he means by stiff-necked people. Exodus chapter 32, verse 9. They're stiff-necked. He mentions the same word lots of times. I'm just going to use this example in 2 Chronicles. 2 Chronicles chapter 30. They've built a temple. Solomon built the temple, and they had a great ceremony, and then they went crazy. As time went by, even though they just stopped worshiping, stopped going to the temple, because it was just easier to have a little God in your house. It's just easier. I got to drive all the way to church. This is easier. Okay, but you're going to start making stuff up. So they hadn't been to the temple in a long time. In 2 Chronicles verse 30, and not that God lived in the temple, but there were certain sacrifices and things that he wanted them to make that they weren't doing. They weren't sacrificing for sin. They weren't studying the law. The law was in the temple. There was all this stuff going on that they weren't doing. If you're doing it in your home, I'm good with that, but you're not doing it in your home. And you're not doing it at the temple. I created the temple to force you to do certain things. I'm trying to teach you about me, teach you about repentance and about forgiveness and about holiness. And so I've set it up in the temple for you, that you're not coming. So therefore you're now believing a bunch of other stuff that other gods from other lands are trying to tell you how the universe works. And it's not true. So in 2 Chronicles chapter 30, verse 8, it says, now do not be stiff-necked. That's resisting, right? As your fathers were, but yield yourselves to the Lord and enter his sanctuary. Enter it, go back in, which he has sanctified forever, and serve the Lord your God, that the fierceness of his wrath may turn away from you. Because they didn't have Bibles. We have Bibles. So in your house, you can read the Bible now. You can go online and listen to some teaching. There's all sorts of great teachers out there. You can watch television. You can, but at the time, the temple was the Bible. So go to the temple. You can learn. So I've set this up for you. Don't be stiff-necked. Don't resist. All right. So he calls them a stiff-necked people. Exodus chapter 32, verse 10. Now, therefore, let me alone. Can I tell you the real translation that the King James people just did not understand? So they said, well, here's a facsimile of the translation. Now, therefore, leave me and allow me that my wrath may burn hot against them. I entitled this, let me kill them. Allow me to do this. Now, therefore, allow me. And it says alone, by myself. Let me, by myself, allow me, let me. King James even says, let me. It says, let me alone, like it's saying, leave me alone. But it's meaning, allow me, by myself, that my wrath may come upon them. Now, why is God asking permission of Moses? Let me kill them. Is Moses God's daddy? No. So this is an odd thing. This is one of those pivotal verses to understanding how the Bible works. God is trying to teach Moses a lesson, because God doesn't force us to do anything. The end result will be that Moses intercedes for the people. No, Lord, because he's want to teach him that wrath does not have to come. All this stuff does not have to happen. You can prevent it. I need you to pray. I don't want you to look at people and go, ha ha ha, that's what they get. They messed up. You need to have a compassionate heart and hope that things don't happen to people. Pray for people. If God decides to go ahead and do something, that's on God. He's a righteous judge, but he doesn't want us to be the one deciding who deserves judgment and who doesn't. You need to pray compassionate people, unless I come to you and tell you, pray a curse on that person. But otherwise, even if somebody has hurt you, pray for your enemies. Pray for the people who despitefully use you. Because you need to be compassionate and see, because that's how I am. I see your faults, I see your shortcomings, and I pray for them as opposed to, and I pray for, God doesn't pray for them, but I have compassion, I have mercy. See, I'm a merciful God. People mess up and I have mercy on them. You need to learn this when people mess up and sin against you, that you have mercy on them, that you have forgiveness. So he's teaching Moses forgiveness and he's teaching him compassion. So he says, I'm about to kill him. Let me kill him. As though you have a part in this. You can say, yeah, you should kill him. Or you say, no, don't kill him. I need you to know that should be your attitude. We don't tell God what to do. But our attitude should be, Lord, have mercy. Oh, Lord, have mercy. That should be our attitude toward everybody, even when they come against us. So let me give you an example of this, because we're just going to park here. In the 32nd chapter of Genesis, I'm just looking. Oh, hey, Donna. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Jacob. Okay. Jacob's name means supplanter, deceiver, because when he was born, he was, even just in the womb, he was wrestling with his brother. He wanted to come out first. I want to take your place. And that's just kind of who he is. I want to take your place. I want to take your place. I want to take your place. He did that with his brother Esau. I want to take your place. Which is a problem, that he thinks what he has is not enough. I need what you have. And that's kind of saying what God has given me is not enough. I got to have what you have. So he was also a scaredy cat. I mean, which is okay, but his parents instilled that in him. Your brother's going to kill you now that you stole what he had. You better run. And that he ran, because he just wasn't that guy. He wasn't that, I'm going to stand here and take my ground. When he decided that Laban was treating him badly, he ran. He took all his kids and ran. Now he runs into Esau. Oh, Esau's on the way. Oh, and he wants to run again. He wants to run, because he thinks God's not going to protect him. He didn't have to run the first time. When his parents said to him, Esau's going to kill you, you better get out of here. Esau wasn't going to kill him. God wasn't going to allow that. But he believed his parents. And his parents didn't know any better. But they just instilled in Jacob that people are stronger than God. So in order to save yourself, you got to run from them as opposed to listen to what God says. He just decided, God's just as scared as me, so I better run. So he's trying to convince Jacob, I got to change your attitude about who you think you are, about who you think what's possible, about your qualities. God is always working on us. Jacob could have prayed, Lord, change Esau. And God's like, I'm working on Esau, but I'm working on you. So we want God, but God's like, no, let me work on you. I'm working on everybody. I'm working on everybody. Everybody needs to change. So let's just focus on how you can change. So he comes to Jacob, and Jacob's at his lowest moment. Esau's on his way. He's divided his family up and put the kids he cares about the least in front, and then the next ones, and then he's got Joseph, and then he's by himself. He's by himself, praying, oh, Esau's on his way. He's going to kill me. I don't know what I'm going to do. An angel comes, because he's kind of in the same place the first time when he was running, where he saw angels on a ladder going up and down on a staircase, ascending and descending. So there's an angel descending and ascending, and he grabs this angel, and they're wrestling because, like, I'm scared. You got to stay with me. You got to stay. Exodus chapter 32, verse 22. And he rose that night, and he took his 2 wives, his 2 female servants, his 11 sons, and he crossed over the ford of Jabbok. And he took them. So he took them and he sent them over the brook and sent over what he had. Here's some food and some provisions. I'm going by myself. Then Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until the breaking of day. So he's wrestling with this angel. Now, when he saw that he did not prevail against them, the angel touched the socket of his hip. And the socket of Jacob's hip was out of joint as he wrestled with him. Why is he putting his... Now, this is an angel. Again, an angel who smites armies, and he's not really losing against Jacob. Jacob thinks, oh, I'm so weak, and I've got to change your feeling. So he's wrestling with this angel, and Jacob is not losing, like he's just used to losing. That's the image he has. I'm a loser. So the angel allows Jacob to contend, and then it's like, good. Jacob is holding on instead of running away. Jacob is like fighting and holding for a change. So I'm going to prevent him now from running away. So I'm accomplishing two things. I'm letting him beat me in this fight because that's good for him to know that he can win. And I'm going to keep him from running away, because if he can run away, if he has to stay, then he has to stay and fight and learn that God will fight his battle. As long as you keep running, you never learn that God's going to fight your battle, because you never allowed the battle to start. God wasn't telling Jacob to fight the battle. He was telling Jacob, stay and watch me fight the battle. But you'll never know. You're going to just run your whole life. So I'm going to put your hip out of joint so that you can't run anymore, because that's what you've been doing since you were a kid, just running. And he says, let me go now, for the day breaks. But Jacob says, no, I will not let you go unless you bless me. Now, interestingly enough, he's already gotten two of the blessings. The angel made him think he won, so that he can think, oh, I don't have to be scared of people. And he put joint out of socket, which is actually a blessing. Oh, no, I can't run anymore. That's actually a blessing. There's a whole bunch of stuff that God does that's actually a blessing to us, and we don't know. So he wants blessing number 3. He doesn't even know he's already got 2. So angel says to him, what is your name? And he says, Jacob, which means deceiver, supplanter. He says, so your name shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel. Israel, the prince of God. Israel of God, the king. You're a prince of God. Means God. For you have struggled with God and with man and have prevailed. See, you prevailed. You think you can never win, but you stayed in the fight and you won. And so you've got to be that person that teaches that to your children. You can't teach your children, you got to always run. You don't. You can stay and you can fight. You can stay and watch God win the battle. Okay. So he had to have an experience in order to learn this. In this case with Moses, God is trying to teach Moses to intercede for these people that he does not like. We don't want to pray for people who have wronged us. We don't want to pray when we told them to do it one way and they did the opposite, we're mad at them. And and we want punishment to come on them because they didn't listen to us, or they hurt us, or they attacked us, and God is teaching Moses mercy, because Moses understands judgment. Kill them, Lord. But he needs to understand mercy. But the only way to do that is put it in a position where God's saying, allow me to kill them all. And to have Moses think about that and go, no, even though they've done badly, no, you shouldn't do that. So he can't go to Moses and say, hey, you should do this, because that's not the person learning for themselves. People learn best for themselves when they're in that position. They have to use their brains and faculties to solve it. So we always want to instruct everybody, push this, touch this, but you haven't learned it. All that you've taught them is to listen to you. But if you're not there, are they going to know how to do it? So I'm often saying, okay, let me do it. Stand here and watch me do it so that I can figure this out, so that I know how to do it. Because if you just tell me how to do it, then I'm going to have to call you every single time and ask you, because all I learned was to listen to your instructions. So God's like, let me put you in a position where you are forced to think to yourself, is that the best thing, that they all be killed? No, let me ask for mercy. So God puts in that position. The people have done badly, I'm going to kill them. Here's why he has to teach them that, because Moses has had a really horrible relationship with these people. In Exodus chapter 3, it's starting with Moses knowing he's Jewish but being raised Egyptian. This is on purpose. Moses needed to know the Egyptian laws, customs, so that he can go in and talk to Pharaoh in order to free the people. He needed to have this education, the greatest libraries in the world were in Alexandria. There's all this education that Moses needed to know the history of the world and all this stuff that had been compiled. He had to have this education because Moses was going to put together Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. And he needed to have this education. So being raised in Pharaoh's house was not a punishment, unless Moses decided to look at it that way. So God will do something in our lives and we decide, oh, this is bad. It's like, okay, it's not. That's your choice. You're looking at it that way. But if you think that I put you in a situation, then that'll change how you look at it. You say, well, this must not be that bad. God put me here. That's a kind of a Joseph thing, right? Joseph, when he was sold off to Egypt, when he was thrown into the pit, when he was put in jail, he was looking at like, this is bad, bad, bad. And when his brothers showed up, he was ready to put his vengeance on the brothers and make them bow down and be scared. And then it hit him, oh, this wasn't bad. All this stuff that happened, I was interpreting it as bad. God sent me here. And once we know, okay, God has a situation, if we can just think God's not sitting there going, oh, I didn't want this to happen, and now what are we going to do? If God's allowing it, then there's some good in it somewhere. We need to say, okay, Lord, where's the good in this? Show me what I'm supposed to learn from it. Show me how I can grow from it. And so Joseph finally went, oh, duh, God sent me here so that I can rescue my family. This was not a bad thing. This is the best thing that could have ever happened for my family. So Moses being raised in Pharaoh's house, he decided to look at it as a bad thing. Oh, now the people, they won't know me. And then, so finally, at the age of 40, he decides, I'm going to connect with my people and I'm going to rescue them. And because he felt like there's some reason, but he made up the reason. Yes, you're a rescuer, but God's going to do it. God's not asking you to do it. Let me do it. But I want you to be my instrument as I tell you, as I move you. But you don't have to take it all on. Sometimes we do think, oh, I know what God wants, and we take it all on. Like, I didn't ask you to take it all on. So, at verse 11 says, now it came to pass in those days when Moses was grown, 40, that he went out to his brethren and looked at their burdens, and now he's feeling compassion for them. And he saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his brethren. So he looked this way and that way, and when he saw that no one was there, he killed the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. And when he went out the second day, behold, 2 Hebrew men were fighting, and he said to the one who did wrong, why are you striking your companion? Now what they're supposed to say in Moses' mind, oh my God, you're the guy who rescued us yesterday and killed that Egyptian. Thank you so much. You are so good. We're so glad you were here. You're our savior. That's the scenario in his head. Because he hadn't said boo to his own people in 40 years. The first thing he says, why are you striking your companion? And they're supposed to say, it's you. But that's not what he said. He says, who made you a prince and a judge over us? Do you intend to kill me as you killed the Egyptian? And this shocked him. Uh-oh, I've been exposed. He knows what I did. And he doesn't like me. Who made you? And so this hurt his feelings horribly, because when you put yourself out for someone and then they step on you like that, that really hurts your feelings. And then I'm never going to help these people again. Which is what he thought. I will never help these people again. I don't know what I was thinking. So Moses feared and said, oh, surely it's known. And he leaves. He runs away. So that's his first, the people hate me. That's his feeling. So God's got to teach this person compassion, this person to have mercy. But it gets worse. In Exodus 3:13, when Moses sees the burning bush and God says, I want you to go down and rescue people, Moses has every excuse because he doesn't like the people and doesn't think that they like him. So Moses says to God, indeed, when I come to the children of Israel and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent to you, and they say to me, well, what's his name? What do I say to them? And God, like he's going to stump God, like, oh, you're right. I don't have a name. So, okay, never mind. You don't have to go. So he tells them all this stuff. Moses makes another excuse in Exodus 4:1. Then Moses answered and said, okay, that's all good. But suppose they don't believe me or listen to my voice. Suppose they say, Lord hasn't appeared to you. And again, in each case, he's really wanting God to go, You know, you're right. I hadn't thought about that. Let me get somebody else. Because he doesn't like those people and does not think they like him. And they're not going to listen to me. They're not going to believe me. They're going to question me. They're going to challenge me like they did. That guy challenged me. In Exodus 4:10, Moses says to the Lord, okay, Lord, I'm not eloquent, neither before nor since you have spoken to your servant, but I'm slow of speech and slow of tongue, and don't send me, because I'm going to think of every excuse not to go to these people because I don't like them. They don't like me. They don't know me. I wasn't raised them. I am now a Midianite. I haven't circumcised my kids. I don't have a relationship with these people. So don't send me. Moses does not want to go. Now, God doesn't care what you want. I'm going to use you anyway because I've already designed this thing to work this way. But I'm going to change you along the way. Exodus chapter 4, verse 13. But he said, oh, my Lord, please send by the hand of whomever else you may send. Just send somebody else. I don't know if I've made it clear. I don't want to go. So the anger of the Lord was kindled against Moses, and he said, is not Aaron the Levite your brother? I know that he can speak well. I know what I'm doing. Your brother's already coming. And look, he's also coming out to meet you. When he sees you, he'll be glad in his heart. So you're going, Moses. This is not a choice. But Moses didn't go, you know what? I really love those people. I want to go. He never did like them. He never spoke to them. Aaron was the one that spoke to them. Moses spoke to Pharaoh, but Aaron spoke to the people. So Moses doesn't have a relationship with his people. Here's one time when the people spoke to Moses. In Exodus chapter 4, Moses went in, spoke to Pharaoh, said, let my people go. And Pharaoh said, well, I'm going to increase their workload and make it harder for them. But thanks for asking. And so in Exodus chapter 4, verse 20, it says, then as they came out from people, the people who went to plead with Pharaoh, stop making it worse, don't make it worse. And Pharaoh's like, well, Moses came in and asked, so you have to blame Moses. When they came out from Pharaoh, they met Moses and Aaron, who stood there to meet them. And they said to them, let the Lord look on you and judge, because you have made us abhorrent in the sight of Pharaoh and in the sight of his servants, to put a sword in their hand to kill us. You have made our lives miserable, which is the very thing that Moses feared. These people hate me. Their lives are worse. And Moses was ready to quit then. And God says, no, you can't quit. So Moses is convinced these people don't like him, and then they proved it. It's confirmation bias. See, they don't like me, because I'd already decided that's the truth. And so this one thing is just confirmed in my mind. See, in Exodus chapter 16, verse 2, it says, then the whole congregation of the children of Israel complained against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. Once they did deliver them, at no time is there a scripture said, and the people went up to Moses and Aaron and said, thank you so much for delivering us from Pharaoh. That was so nice of you. They complained the whole time when he brought them to the Red Sea. You got us out here to kill us. When they crossed over and got into the wilderness, you brought us out here to kill us. And the children of Israel said to them, oh, that we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, where we sat by the pots of meat. Now I understand that. And we ate bread to the full, for you have brought us out into the wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger. So this is how he knows them, as people who complain, people who don't like him, people who he doesn't like, and now people who always are accusing him and complaining him. This is how he knows them. Exodus chapter 17, verse 3. And the people thirsted for water, and the people complained against Moses and said, why is it you have brought us up out of Egypt to kill us and our children and our livestock with thirst? So Moses cried out to the Lord, saying, what shall I do with these people? Not, Lord, bless their hearts. They don't. He doesn't like them. They don't like him. He says, they are about ready to stone me. And the Lord said to Moses, go on before the people, take some of the elders of Israel, and take in your hand the rod which you struck the river, and go. Behold, I will stand before you there on the rock in Horeb, and you shall strike the rock, and water will come out of it, that the people may drink. And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel, and it all worked out. But Moses didn't know that. Moses didn't go to God and say, Lord, I know you have the answer for these people. Bless their hearts. He's like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And he's waiting for God to say, yeah, we're going to destroy him. Thank you. You know, I wanted that all along. That's why I left those people. Because there was nothing good that Moses was finding in the people. Exodus chapter 18, verse 13. And so it was in the next day that Moses sat to judge the people. So now I've got to judge all these people. And the people stood before Moses from morning until evening. So when Moses' father-in-law saw what they did for the people, he said, what is this thing that you're doing to the people? Why do you alone sit and all the people stand before you from morning until evening? They just were in a line complaining to Moses. And Moses says to his father-in-law, because the people come to me to inquire of God. And so when they have a difficulty, they come to me and I judge between one and another and I make known the statutes of God and his laws. So Moses' father-in-law said to him, the thing you do is not good. It's not good. You're not praying to God. You're not asking God, how should I solve this? You just think, oh, God, I got to take care of these people and solve their problems. So they're just a problem to Moses. That's all they are. So he says to Moses, go down. The people have transgressed their laws. Literally, allow me to kill them. But he's putting the choice in Moses' hand. Because he's trying to teach Moses, even though the people make you crazy, even though the people frustrate you, they're not doing what you're saying, your job is to have compassion for them and to pray for them. Jesus on the cross was still having compassion. He was still trying to reach people in the hall. He's still trying to, they're beating him and whipping him. He's trying to explain, the power that you have is from God. This is not from you. He's still trying to help them see. He tells Peter in the Garden of Gethsemane, don't you think I'd bring down the 10,000 angels to wipe them all out in an instant? I'm not going to do that. Have compassion, because God has compassion for us every day. Every day we mess up. We don't think we do. Oh, I'm incredible today. No, I could have wiped you out today. But he has mercy on us, and he wants us to demonstrate that same mercy to other people. That's what makes us different from other people, is that we show mercy. Even when people are attacking us, even people are coming against us, they're not doing what we want, we show mercy. That's God, because our flesh wants to always bristle up and tear them down and that's our flesh. That's not God in us. We feel very justified. They did attack us. They did. They came against us. They didn't do. We said do it this way, and they did it that way. And so the only way we show that God is in us is that we don't react the same way as the world reacts. We forgive. We pray mercy on the people who have attacked us. Lord, please don't bring this to their account. Lord, please, Father, Jesus on the cross, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. That's our job. Now, how God then reacts is up to him, because he's the righteous judge. He knows who deserves judgment, who deserves mercy. We don't. So we just pray mercy for everybody, unless God comes to us and says, I want you to pray down judgment of those people. But that's very rare. Of the 3,000, I'm making this up, I don't know what the number is, 3,000 activities that God had with people, 3 out of 3,000, actually just once, out of 3,000 God prayed a curse down on that person. The other 2,099, I don't know what the number is. God was always saying, mercy, 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 mercy. So we're not equipped to do that. God's had to teach that to Moses right here. Moses, you have to pray for these people when these things happen. And I will tell you that later on, Moses would feel like when people would challenge him, when Korah would challenge him and other people would challenge him, Moses would say, oh, please don't do this. This is terrible. God's going to judge you. Oh, Lord, because he realized, I'm on the side of right. I don't have to be angry with them. I don't have to be mad at them. I need to pray mercy on them. And so God is beginning the education here. So God's not really going to destroy them. He's just threatening to do it. Allow me to destroy them to see what Moses will do. He's trying to teach and shape his character at this point. So he says in verse 10, second part, that I may consume them, and then I'll make you a great nation, which is tempting. I'll just give you a bunch of kids and make it, we'll just start over with you. Isn't that what you want? Isn't that what you want? And Moses had to think about it. Is that what I want them all to be gone and dead? Part of me wants that, but a part of me does not. So in Exodus chapter 32, verse 11, then Moses pleads with the Lord his God and says, Lord, why does your wrath burn hot against your people whom you've brought out of the land of Egypt with great power and with a mighty hand? Look what all you've done for these people. It wouldn't make sense to destroy them. You've done all this great stuff for them. Why should the Egyptians speak and say, ha, he brought them out to harm them and to kill them in the mountains? It's like, well, that wouldn't make sense. All that you've done, because God rescues people and then they mess up again. And we want to go, well, that's it. As opposed to, well, God rescued them for a reason. I know they messed up again, but why did God rescue them in the first place? Because he saw their potential. So even though they messed up again, I'm going to pray that you could keep forgiving them. Because that's what he's saying. You brought them out. So what would be the point? Are the Egyptians going to say he brought them out to harm them? So that doesn't make any sense, Lord. And this is Moses reasoning out loud. He's talking out loud. So why should the Egyptians speak and say he brought them out to harm them and to kill them in the mountain and to consume them from the face of the earth? No. Turn from your fierce wrath and relent from this harm to your people. Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, your servants, to whom you swore by your own self and said to them, I will multiply your descendants as the stars of heaven, and all this land that I have spoken of I give to your descendants, that they shall inherit it forever. And these are those descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel. He doesn't even say Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, because he's remembering how God changed Jacob to Israel and how he challenged him, and he got Jacob to learn not to run. He got Jacob to learn not to be afraid through an experience, because you can tell people stuff, but sometimes the best teacher is that experience where they're forced then to make a new choice. So Jacob made a new choice. He was forced to, I'm going to have to stay here and deal with my brother. Oh, look, because I didn't run, I learned that God will protect me. I learned that God will come through. So, so the Lord, wow. Come on, there. Hopefully it won't make that sound again. So, so remember Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So the Lord relented from the harm which he said he would do to his people because he wasn't going to do it in the first place. That was for Moses, because Moses was going to have to learn, because this was just the beginning of the people acting ugly. And Moses had to learn to pray for them and be compassionate to them. He had to teach them compassion. If they don't see it in Moses, they weren't going to be able to teach it to their children and their children and their children on down. So Moses had to be the first person. He's the first pastor, right? He had to learn to be compassionate so that they could hear, here's how you act when people come against you. Here's how you act when people are doing all these things to attack you. You still are merciful. Because how will people learn that God is merciful if they don't see it through you? So the Lord relented from the harm which he said he was going to do to his people. Now it came to pass in the next day that Moses said to the people, oh, you know what? I'm going to stop there. So, yes. So, this is the lesson. Now, ironically, when Moses goes down there and really, because see, Moses has no idea what's going on. God's just presenting a hypothetical to him. The people have messed up, but Moses can't see it. As we know, when Moses goes down there and sees it, then he gets mad and gets in his flesh again, and he throws down the tablets. And God gives him new tablets, but says, now you're going to have to write this all over. I'm going to give you new tablets, but I didn't tell you. You broke. And he says, the tablets which you broke. Because did we not just have a big session in the mountain where you said, yes, forgive them, forgive, and then you're going to blow up? You think your anger, I can't be mad at them, but you can? No. You're not bigger than me. You don't have more right to be mad at them than I do. So if I can forgive them, you can forgive them too. Let me deal with it. Your job is to be compassionate. How I then respond is my righteous choice of who I'm going to do this to and that to. But you don't get to make that choice. You don't get to look at other people and say, well, you deserve death. You deserve life. You don't get that choice. So you just say, Lord, have mercy, and then leave that up to me. So I'm going to stop there. In an hour or so, an hour and a half, I will be preaching. This is just for Donna, because I think she's the only one that tunes in. But I will be preaching on the book of Samuel, chapter 19 at my church, on my website and also on the Good Shepherd website. And then I'll be continuing on Wednesday in the book of John. Jesus is just about to be taken down off the cross. But the story's not over, because it's what the disciple chooses to do after that. That really what the book of John is about. Not about what Jesus did, but about how they respond to it. Okay, so thank you so much for tuning in today. And I'll see you soon, either in an hour or next Wednesday or next Sunday. All right, thanks so much. Bye-bye.